following program on Derana 24 is classified for general audience. It is intended for all ages. It contains little or no violence, no strong language, and little or no sexual dialogue or situations. The following program contains opinions of the participants and does not reflect the views and beliefs of the Derana Media Network. The network believes in a safe space for all ideas to be expressed and on its duty to create such a platform for free speech. Viewer discretion is strictly advised. For a real view, real opinion, and for an honest conversation, it's time to Get Real with Mahieash Johnney. Tonight, coming to you from Studio 24 in Colombo.
A very good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Get Real, where we talk to notable newsmakers here at home and abroad, give you a different take on what's happening around the world. Tonight's discussion is basically more about what's happening around the world, not so much about Sri Lanka. It could have implications to Sri Lanka, as many world events do. Tonight, as you know, all throughout the day, you were informed about the death of the Iranian president. He was here in Sri Lanka in the early days of this month, and he was here to open the Uma oil project. Now the state media has confirmed that the Iranian president is no more. He was killed in a helicopter crash, according to state TV information. Now, this particular event that occurred has a lot of implications, not just about for the country, but Iran is currently in a proxy war with Israel in the Middle East, and there is another proxy war going with the United States. There could be severe retaliations, which means it could completely de-escalate the situations in the Middle East, or there could be certain other action that will be taken by the Iranian forces. Now, this is a point of conversation that we really need to dive into. I've invited once again the former foreign minister, Dr. Sarath. Welcome to the program. Good to see you. Today is a day of many events around the world, but the death of the Iranian president, Ibrahim Raisi, takes center stage. How do you see his death? I understand it's very unfortunate and tragic, but the implications per se towards the region?
Well, firstly, let me say that it's a poignant event for us in Sri Lanka, because only a few weeks ago, President Raisi was in Sri Lanka. As you said, he came to declare open the Uma oil project, a project which was where we had a collaboration with the Iranian government. And maybe it would have been probably one of his last visits outside Iran. And also because this also was he was going to Azerbaijan to open a dam. So it's rather poignant for us Sri Lankans. But globally, it is a shocking event coming at a time when the Middle Eastern scenario and indeed the global scenario is like a tinderbox. Anything can make it flare up. It is already in a delicate state, difficult state. So this is going to have a very large impact, particularly because this comes as a series of accidents. You'll recall some time ago there brilliant commander Soleimani. Yes. He was assassinated. I think that was during the Trump administration. Then a few months ago, there was this attack on the Iranian generals in Syria, even in their own embassy in Damascus, which led to the actual first attack from Iranian soil onto Israel. So this has been an escalating situation, and we don't know the facts of the case in detail, because I think the Iranian government has not yet made a detailed statement, but it looks very much as though this was a crash under very difficult circumstances when there was certainly climatic problems also. But 3 helicopters really went on this mission, and unfortunately it was this one which carried the president and also the foreign minister. That itself, I think, was a security lapse, because generally they don't all go in the same plane, or same mode of conveyance. So it raises many questions, but even without our going into the actual narration of what happened or not, the scenario is likely to be a very difficult one as a result of this accident or we don't know, crash.
Exactly. One of the things that could occur now, we know through Hamas, Iran has been funding Hamas for quite some time, and those are facts that is there where people can actually look into. But that particular war, the Israel escalation, and there were certain military campaigns that was carried out by Iran to attack certain targets of Israel, and Israel did the same in Iran, and this particular escalation occurs. Now, the first point of imagination of a lot of people around the world is going to be the fact that this is a hit job. This is what they killed the generals, they killed a certain hierarchy of the Iranian government. Now here they go, they took the president himself. How would that translate into the current Israel-Hamas war, and what would that look like in the Middle East? Because the Middle East is so tensed at the moment. There is such a backlash from Islamic countries to make sure that they take a really strong action, a permanent action against Israel, and that there would not be an escalation like that. Not just in the Middle East, but if you look at the protests around the world, it looks like that Israel is slowly losing the support it usually had those days. So in a situation like that, this death, how do you analyze it?
Yes, well, you have to first sort of disaggregate several factors. The first factor, as you mentioned, Mahieash, is that Iran was looked upon, and in reality was, the main sponsor of the chief opposition to the Israeli government or the Israeli military machine. First were the Hamas people, who were being supported by Iran. Then there were the Houthi rebels, who were also supported by them. And then there was, of course, the Hezbollah. So Hamas, Hezbollah and Houthi are the most militant opposition to the Israeli regime, and all three were supported by Iran. So naturally Iran would have drawn the ire, the hatred of the Israelis, target number one, as it were, because the Arab world is not united actually in this matter. There are some countries like Iran which is backing them fully, but there are other countries like, for example, Jordan, to some extent Saudi Arabia. Those countries have traditionally had very, very strong links with the United States, but they are now pulled in two directions. One was this traditional loyalty and indeed their stability. They are remaining in power, largely depending on the support of Western forces, particularly the U.S. But on the other hand, the rising Arab nationalism. And thirdly, I would say, very skillful diplomatic activity by China and Russia and those countries. So all three factors merge to create a, shall I say, uncertain situation. Whereas 2 years ago or 5 years ago, the US presence was absolutely dominant, particularly of these what I call sort of intermediate countries. Today, rising Arab nationalism and skillful diplomacy has detached them from that strong position. They are now in two minds. You would notice the first country to contact Iran regarding this crash was Saudi Arabia, saying that we are very disturbed, we are willing to give all assistance, and so on. So this will add to the feeling that the Arab countries are now again being attacked in various ways by the Israelis and the Western countries. Then,
would this event unite them?
Well, certainly. I mean, I don't know whether they will give up their main interests of survival as against this pressure. So there's this constant interplay. Now, the best test of that is Jordan. Jordan was virtually a vassal state of the West because, the King Hussein, he always had very strong connections with the UK. He was trained in the UK. His wives were British women and so on. So depending very much on the on Western assistance, financial assistance, military assistance. Long ago there was Glab Pasha, the head of the Jordanian army was a Britisher. So very strongly pro-British, pro-Western. But on the other hand, there was a large number of Palestinian refugees, Palestinian citizens in Jordan. If I'm not mistaken, they are the majority of, if you count heads in this region called Jordan, most of them are these Palestinian refugees. So they are at a knife's edge, very difficult to take one side or the other. You can see that the king, Abdullah, and particularly the queen have been talking rather out of their normal stance, taking a very pro-Hamas, pro-Palestine line. So they are all rather shaky, and this will make it even more difficult for them to ignore this clamor, this push towards Arabism, supported also by Africa, for instance. You can see South Africa is taking a very strong attitude. Then thirdly, as you say, the youthful community all over the world, especially the American universities. I saw recently the senator, the most left-wing senator, saying that this is Biden's Vietnam. So this sort of situation is there's growing, there's escalating anti-Western, anti-American sentiment all over the globe. As a result of this, their foreign policy has failed, and they are being pushed to the wall throughout the globe, as it were.
It's actually a good point to talk about the American elections and the next leader who might take over power there, but I want to keep that after the break. But Foreign Minister, you know for a fact that America is so good in carrying out surgical operations, military operations with precision in order to get certain targets attacked or eradicated. We saw that with Osama bin Laden. We didn't even know up until the time that he has been captured, or there's a water burial that has occurred until President Obama came on television and said that this is what we've done. So nobody knew the time that they were coming. Pakistan never knew. Their radars were completely absconded by the Americans. Do you see that signature here, or do you think this is actually a tragic crash?
Well, I think it's too early to say definitively what happened, because even the Iranian government is not making any statement in that regard. Their energies are all there to try to find out what's happening and that sort of thing. We have not had any formal accusation or any formal statement from any of the players. So I think we will have to withhold judgment on that, but that may be the factual situation. The sentiments in the Middle East and globally will certainly be, as you mentioned, against the West and Israel, because they have a whole track record of this type of strikes. And this is not only since this Hamas incident. For the last 20, 30, 40 years, this hand-picked assassination of leaders who are a nuisance for Israel.
Was Raisi a nuisance?
No, they would have wanted to, if we are speculating on those lines. I must say that it is purely speculation. We have no other, any Iranian leader at this stage, if he is eliminated, then that will be a strong message that Israel is still, though it is globally now in the doghouse, though it is even pulling down Biden because of their excessive activity, it will send the shivers to all heads of state, to all politicians in the region, that they can strike at will. And this is only a few months, maybe less than even a month after this Damascus attack, which led to this attack from within the borders of Iran to Israel, which was unprecedented. Earlier, there were proxies like the Houthis, the Hezbollah, and the Hamas. But this time, because of this attack on the Iranian generals who were in Damascus, there was a direct attack. Of course, they say it was choreographed.
Do you think this particular incident would lead a direct war between Israel and Iran without the usage of any proxies?
Very unlikely. First, we have to await what had actually happened, because there is also the possibility that it was a natural accident. So that the best test would be what the Iranians say. But Iranians, in the last attack on Israel, when you analyze it, it became crystal clear that they were not going to a scenario where there was an all-out attack between those two countries. Actually, they had signaled that they were attacking 24 hours to the west, that they were doing this. Now it emerges that there was a lot of dialogue, that this was more symbolic attack, that they had to respond, firstly because of the Iranian population. They would have taken a lot of exception to if they were just sitting on the fence even after that attack. So that's another activity, because if it is proved that this was engineered, this crash was engineered, we have to think of the Iranian population. They have come to the limit of their tolerance. You know, that is why even the leaders were forced to go into this drama of this attack on Iran.
Next leader, I think they have to elect another leader within 50 days. So do you think that particular leader would take a very radical approach towards the West because of this incident? No. And would that be a popular choice for the Iranians, or would we see calm downing of things?
No, in the first place is under the Iranian constitution, the vice president takes the place of the president when there's a situation like this. But also the leader is the maximum leader, no, the religious leader, the supreme leader. So the president is not the equivalent of the presidents of countries that we know or talk of. He is actually the second player in the game and often a nominee of the supreme leader. There's no way that you can have a president who is at loggerheads with the supreme leader. And that is really what had happened even to Amunugama, the previous president, who was very popular, but he was eased out. It was Ahmadinejad with whom we transacted the business regarding Umayyad. So he's out of the scene because the supreme leader decides who is the president. So this case of a president is not the same as of, say, the president of a country. He's really the number 2 person in Iran.
Indeed. Let's take a short commercial break. The information thus far, I'm quoting Fox News right now, they are confirming that the Iranian president, along with the foreign minister and other officials, have been confirmed dead. As per initial information that is coming out to most Western media is that the Iranian president's helicopter had to make a hard landing due to weather-related matters, and that was one of the that's why they say the hard landing was miscalculated, and that would have led to the initial crash. Still, officials are trying to get to the site and get accurate information, but the state media of Iran has confirmed that the Iranian president, along with their foreign minister, is no more, and that they have passed away tragically from a helicopter crash. You're watching Get Real. We'll be right back. to Get Real. I'm in conversation with the former Foreign Minister, Dr. Sarath Amunugama, with regard to a lot of events that is occurring around the world. I want to talk about the United States current elections, which is becoming interesting by the minute. It is fascinating to see, Doctor, how they elect their leaders. That particular process is really fascinating and looks very democratic indeed, despite the fact that there are pushback from here and there. But Donald Trump kind of completely shot the book, and he's a new form of leader where people are trying to figure out, well, the old system seems like it doesn't work anymore. A lot of things to learn from the United States electoral process, but I understand a lot of people, most of you all watching now would be saying that, that's exactly what Sri Lanka needs to do. No, Sri Lanka doesn't need to do that, because we're just 80 years of our own since gaining independence. If you look at 80 years since America got their independence, they were at war. Even the states were at war with each other. So it was a very bad situation there. We have a lot to learn. We will get there. We'll get there through the processes. The errors that we make, we learn, and we will get to the point where we should be. Anyway, let's talk about the U.S. presidential election. Doctor, apparently there's going to be a debate between Joe Biden, the incumbent president, and the Republican nominee, Donald Trump. Is that going to be a debate, or is that going to be, what exactly is that?
Well, this is, in a sense, a unique situation. Yeah. Because after a very long time, a president and ex-presidents are in the fray. Normally, fresh faces come up, you have these primaries, and then the convention of the parties, as you mentioned, Mahieash. There's a whole process out of the 50 states and the parties. Now, that is a long process. But here we have a different situation, where one was the ex-president, one is the current president. Both have a long history of actual administration. So what is there in a debate? Because already, as commentators are pointing out, they've already had this debate 4 years ago. Yeah. And that was acrimonious debate. Yeah. Each one.
At that time, Biden was present in the debate.
He was
But this time, despite the fact that he would be there, everybody is trying to think about his mental acuity.
And apart from that, both are preoccupied with other problems.
Yeah, of course.
4 years ago, this was the main focus of attention. But now, Trump has his own, excuse me, Trump has his own problems, legal problems, and Biden has his own problems with the war in Ukraine, in Gaza, and also impending problems with Taiwan. So the preoccupation of both contestants are coming very much to the fore rather than the debates itself. That's the first point. The second point is that the two positions are already well known to the American public, what Trump stands for and what Biden stands for, because they've both held power and both have shown what they can do or what they cannot do, especially when it comes to the question of Ukraine. Trump has said, well, look at my regime. We never had wars of this nature. We never had American money and American soldiers on the ground in many of these places. I used my authority with North Korea, with Putin, with Xi Jinping, and we could negotiate some solution to many of these problems. On the other hand, he says Biden is a fool. He called him that. He's past his prime, and he has now messed up this whole thing. So the American public, unlike 4 years ago, there's nothing new. They're two old veterans hammering at each other,
But there is a completely different change that is occurring in certain states of America, especially the southern states. 4 years ago, Doctor, the black vote was basically for the Democrats. Biden was secured because of the black vote. And this time around, it has changed. More than 37%, one of the latest polls that came out, 37% of black voters are saying they're gonna go independent and then they're gonna vote Trump. Because they are saying their lives were way better when Trump was in office rather than what it is right now. And they also understand this simple fact where when money, billions of dollars has been siphoned to Ukraine in order to build that country, who's going to suffer is the minorities first, because of the simple fact that lots of inflation, taxes, all of these things are going to go up. And basically, they are not a fan of the idea of paying for the development of another country when they are in the drains. How do you interpret this? Do you think the black voters would be the deciding factor for Trump this time?
Well, there are two basic constituencies that any Democratic candidate must absolutely get. One is the black vote, other one is the youth vote. Now, those both are now in play due to various strategies of Biden. On the plus side, you must say, even the black vote is determined to some extent by that, Biden has followed a very pro-labor type of policy when it comes to internal domestic economic growth. He has done fairly well in employment, various other indices. But the latest, unfortunately for Biden, the very latest figures are showing high inflation. High inflation means trouble for Biden, and it goes to the heart of his plus factor, that is that he has done well with the economy. So that is also another threatening feature for him. The inflation is related to what you said, that spending money on ammunition, spending money on grants to Ukraine, to Israel, and now to Taiwan, the latest decision to directly fund Taiwan. So all this is impacting on the American economy. So that's one. Number two, Biden has to have the support of what is called the Rust Belt. Those are called the blue states, because when the results come here, the Democratic states go blue and the Republican states go red. So in the Rust Belt, he is having trouble. The latest polls show, of course, they are close to each other, but Trump has a slight edge. So even nationally, I saw last night, I looked at the figures, Trump is having only a very slight edge over Biden. It was not so at the last elections. So we have to take into consideration the pillars of the Democratic Party, of a democratic election. And those are under siege or under threat just now.
If you look at the three states that actually broke Donald Trump's re-election, which was Michigan, and from this side it was Arizona, these states were basically has a lot of blue-collar workers there, and this time around the inflation factor is playing very hard in those states. And apparently this is why Trump's message of America First is becoming very lucrative in those particular states. But in the midterms, we did not see the so-called red wave as much as we hoped to see. The Senate was not overtaken by the Republicans. The Congress was overtaken by a very slight margin. It's not a majority at all. So in a situation like that, are we looking at basically BS hype here over Trump, or is there real factors to say that apparently Trump has an edge in these particular states?
I think, but for the self-inflicted wounds of Biden, especially the wars, his foreign policy, he would have beaten Trump because everything was going for him. But now what has happened is, because of this involvement in the wars and its impact on the actual economy, he is going to have a lot of problems. You see, in the last week, for example, he has raised duties on electrical vehicles. You know, the problem lot of discussion with China relates to China's almost monopoly in the, and cheap electrical vehicles are being produced only in China. And America is the biggest market for that. So far, a lot of these vehicles were coming into the States. Biden had a much more liberal policy when it came to trade. He didn't have those tariffs that Trump was threatening, or in fact in his time did impose. What has Biden done now? He knows the problems he has electorally. So he has slapped a large tariff on electrical vehicles from China. So there is the ideological combat as well as the economic combat. So what has happened to Biden is that because of his foreign policy, what I would call failures, and also now the European Union itself also is blaming America, saying that they're not playing their role and so on. So that is now, just before elections, is beginning to impact on the American economy to the disadvantage of Biden. And if that trend goes, I think the present gap in favor of Trump might go further. But there are other problematic factors like his case, criminal case and so on. But as it is, a direct byproduct of this.
But those, even yesterday I was watching one of the U.S. TV networks and they were talking about the fact that the Democrats' plan prior to the election was to basically prosecute Trump in all these cases, hoping that his entire base would turn away from him, thinking that, okay, this guy is not as much of a saint as we thought. But that has not happened. They've embraced him despite the hush money case, despite his electoral fraud case, all that cases, despite whatever the kitchen sink strategy that the Democrats are using in order to throw whatever, his voter base seems to be increasing on a daily basis. Why do you think that is? Because we don't see any kind of a real strong policy message coming out from Trump. Is it just his charisma, or is it what exactly do you think that the people are now saying, okay, it doesn't matter, he may be a felon or he would have done something wrong, it doesn't matter to us, but we still love this guy and we want to vote for him?
Yes, it's clearly, if you look at the American system, particularly the political system, most of the charges which are brought against Trump can be brought against many of those politicians.
Yes.
For example, this sort of sexual misconduct, financial misconduct, tax evasion, those are the things that are being thrown at Trump. And the fact is that these go a long way. These are not things that happened during the 4-year term as president. These are
old cases.
Very old cases. Sometimes as a young man, what he did with all these hostesses and so on. But I don't think the American public is very worried about those, because look at all the American presidents. Look at what happened to Clinton. Then other sort of misconduct by Nixon. Virtually every president has had some complaint against him in recent times. So then look at Hillary Clinton, about her role as foreign secretary. So I don't think the American public is worried about that. But the legal system, whether they can manipulate the legal system to put him in that trouble. Obviously, the plans of the Democrats are not working.
Not working at all. Not working at all.
No.
Let's take a short commercial break. I'm in conversation with the former Foreign Minister, Dr. Sarath Amunugama, with regards to a lot of things that is occurring. I really wanted to talk about the American election. More so about for a future Trump presidency. How would the world look like in a future Trump presidency? Because a lot of indicators are showing that Trump might actually regain the White House this time around. But then again, polling systems are not to be believed, because those same polling systems said that Trump will never take presidency back in 2016. This is Get Real. We'll be right back. back, everyone, to Get Real. I'm in conversation with Dr. Sarath, Amunugama, our former foreign minister. Doctor, another Trump, 4 years of Trump. How will the world look like? Because apparently he is not a fan of wars. He doesn't want the wars to happen, and he very famously says that within 24 hours he's going to end the Ukraine-Russia war and the Israel-Hamas war. You think he'll be successful?
Yes, if you take his first term, that was a period when America did not engage in any wars. And that was a tricky time, particularly with the nuclear program of North Korea. One must recall that Trump went all the way to meet him in Singapore, I think. He
went to North Korea.
He went to North Korea also. Then he had very good relations in respect of the Israeli situation, where the two-state solution was being pushed, and he had very bad relations with Netanyahu. He said, "I hate Bibi," you know. So that was that. Then as far as Putin was concerned, he had excellent relations with Putin. He said, "I can discuss these things with Putin and sort it out." So, and he did not, I think, encourage this expansion of NATO. He was not a great fan of NATO. He took up the position, look, why should we spend American money to ensure security for these Europeans? They are not spending enough money of their own, and they are expecting us to put a sort of security cordon for them. And he was very critical of NATO, and indeed he forced those European governments for the first time to increase their military allocations for their own safety. So on all those areas, Biden has taken a different position and landed himself in a lot of trouble. So basically, he will try to fight on the economic front. That the fight will be there because the situation has changed now. China is a world power now. India will become a world power. The geopolitical situation is changing. So this Biden's and mostly his staff, people like Nuland, whom he has fired now, and also Blinken, they are hawks. Sullivan and all these people, they are policy hawks.
Warmongers.
Warmongers, actually. Whereas Trump has people who are more interested in the economic scenario. So the struggle will shift to an economic struggle with China as the main opponent, depending on production and things like that. So he will try to build up the American economy, but that can be a peaceful competition. So for us, we will have a big advantage in the sense that Trump is not in the least interested about these human rights issues. He got America out of Geneva.
Exactly.
Whereas Biden and his followers, Samantha Power and Nuland and all those people, that whole gang who came over from, they were all Obama's people, and they were pushing this human rights all over the place.
That's what I wanted to ask you from. Now, last time during the 2016, 2019, 2020 election and the period of the first term of Trump had an excellent relationship with Prime Minister Modi in India. They loved each other. They went into both countries and they were...
And there was this famous thing, Howdy Modi.
Exactly.
They had a big reception for Modi. That was actually orchestrated by Jaishankar, the present foreign minister.
So, in a situation where they will, we are looking at another Modi prime ministerial position with the elections that is occurring right now. Looks like he will secure power again, and that means he will be there for the next few years as well. And if by any chance Trump manages to secure presidency there, how do you think that the India-United States factor would work? And how would that relationship be benefiting to the region per se? Because right now it's a hostile relationship with America, because America is very scared about China, and they keep pushing India in order to pressure countries like Sri Lanka to get on the American bandwagon rather than the Chinese one. Now, how do you translate, if there is a Trump presidency, how would that look like for countries in the region?
Well, I think it will be good for us because Trump will arrange the scenario as a economic struggle between China and the U.S. He will try to outbid the Chinese or prevent what Yellen, the head of the Fed, called overproduction. What they are saying is that there's overcapacity in the Chinese production system now, and that this is flooding the other countries, particularly countries of the West, and tariffs have to come in. So by some irony, it's India, China and the developing countries that are promoting GATT, having some global regulation regarding tariffs and things like that. Whereas the Americans and the Western people are now trying to beat this GATT type of tariff restrictions and put more and more taxes on things coming from China. And also trying to make domestic, that make America great means that you are trying to produce much more in your own country and not depend on products that come from China and from India. But this struggle with the Chinese economy will mean that a lot of the productive capacity which came from the West, which stimulated Chinese growth, will move to other countries, principally to India, because India also has the same type of approach. So it's really a private sector dominated.
I'm just asking, would they risk creating another devil with India? Because if just because you want to get rid of China, you pull everything from China and give it to India, India becomes another huge superpower to deal with, and India is not going to be okay, we will just take care of ourselves and wait. They will also be looking at dominating the rest of the world. So in a situation like that, United States, would they be prudent enough to do something like that? Or
just now their antagonism to China is such that they have to have a regional power. They can't handle everything from Washington or New York. For a whole period of time, they depended on the European Union, the NATO. Their policy was to bring these European countries together so that they could challenge the Soviet Union. Here too, they will have long-distance operations like that, which would mean that there will be a big role for India. And what I envisage is that the future will be a very strong contest between China and India. There are two schools of thought, some who feel that some reconciliation is possible between these two. But increasingly it appears to me that there will be a very severe contest between these two countries for hegemony or supremacy in our region. So we have to adjust accordingly. We are really in the cusp of, on one side India, on the other side China. So we'll have to act very prudently and very carefully in this modern scenario. That is how other countries in the West happened earlier. Non-aligned
policy, do you think it will continue to work for us?
No, I don't think. Today non-alignment is dead, in my opinion, more or less dead. Because now, if you look at what is happening, if you read what Jaishankar and Shiva Shankar Menon and so on have written, this is open. It's public knowledge that what was first a bipolar situation between America and the Soviet Union became a unipolar situation when America dominated everything. Now the theory is that unipolarity is also out of the window. Now you have what is called multipolarity. Countries must adjust to a multipolar power structure in the world. So we don't have to align with only one. We decide on our national interests depending on the situation in this multipolar world. So that is what is emerging. So we have to be very skillful. A country like Sri Lanka has to have a lot of emphasis on how we manage our foreign affairs so that we can get the best, as India is now arguing, in this multipolar world. We need not be fixated on one side or the other. We have to select what is best for this country.
And what do you think is the best for this country?
No, but that depends on the situation. Each situation calls for a particular response. There's nothing called, well, we are in this group or that group. It is, we are in the Sri Lanka group. Yeah. And we have to analyze that in terms of what is good for us.
I want to talk about Sri Lanka's ability. Now, there are groups like BRICS. Seems like a good position for Sri Lanka to take, where we will come and join, and we will try to harness the benefits of all those markets, because economically is where we are trying to thrive. Do you think it's a good idea?
Yes, BRICS is definitely something which is going to be very strong in the future, because that is an attack on the American dollar. As long as the dollar remains the only reserve currency of the world, whatever we talk is not going to be the answer, because they can print money, others can't. We also try to print money, but show that only America can do that. So now the BRICS countries are thinking of an alternate currency system, and that is going to take, because they are very strong. They have a lot of things to buy and sell. Small country which has nothing to buy and sell can't be printing money, but they can have their own currency system, which is a basic challenge to the dollar. Now because of this challenge, see the gold market. Today the gold market is rising, it's going up in phenomenal ways, because China, India, all those countries which had money in dollars, which had their savings in dollars, in American treasury bills, are now switching this to commodities like gold. In other words, they are not happy, or they are not confident that the dollar will be stable. That is what even our rupee is doing well, because the dollar is volatile now. It is under attack. So the more the dollar is under attack, more items like gold will go up in price, and our currencies all will have a better chance.
Absolutely. A world where every day it keeps changing, and every day it becomes very interesting. Former Foreign Minister Dr. Sarath, thank you very much for taking the time. I really appreciate you being